Hello and welcome to another video. I actually can't believe that is July already. In this video, I'm going to be showing you all of the artwork that I did in the month of June. This is the month where I was maybe the most productive as I've ever been. And it's also the month where I created artwork that really shows my sense of style. And I felt like I made the most progress in this month. So there's a lot of work that you may have seen if you've seen any of my previous videos where I show the work that I've done each week, and I will be repeating some of that in this video, but there's also some extra pieces that I've added on that were done in the end of June. So join me as I show you all of the amazing artwork, and I'll just talk briefly about each one, and then I'm going to set some intentions and some goals for July. So first of all, I'm just going to be organising all of these pieces, and I'm just going to organise them in shape order. It's impossible for me without looking back at the videos to see the exact order that these were painted in. And so I'm just going to show you them in size, and then if there's any series, I will show them alongside each other. I think I was a little bit overwhelmed and impressed with the amount of work that I have done in June, because it's hard to, when you finish like a week's worth of work, I'd normally store that away and only pull it back out if I was going to work from it again. And so it was really interesting for me to see it all laid out on a table and to just see how much work I had done, the amount of colourful pieces that I've created, and just the joy. None of it felt like a chore. It all was done because I wanted to. I've documented little adventures. I've worked at different sizes that I haven't worked at before, like these ones here you're going to see me unrolling. I've never painted A2 before, and so that was really interesting for me to show myself that I can do it. And to be honest, these bigger pieces here were the turning point where I tried a new style. I really enjoyed it, and it has followed on to many other little pieces, and I definitely feel drawn to working back at that size again because of just how proud of the work I am. So I'm just going to go through them, and I'm going to start with these larger pieces, which I know were the first in the series. This one is one of my favourites. I like to always have this one on the top of the pile so I can see it, and I know that that's a good sign that I really like it. This is one where I've used masking fluid but only lightly and just experimenting with it, and yeah, I really like it. I like the muted colour, but there's also a deep richness. There's the patterns coming through, and I feel like this could be in a children's book. I made a little print of this one, and I recently took it to a little market, and I was just getting lots of compliments on them. Well, I was getting compliments on a lot of these pieces, which were all these large paintings. This is another one of my favourites, and this is the one that maybe stood out the most to people. I think because of the pink and the amount of colour and texture that there is. It's a really beautiful piece. I really did take away from this one the technique of using the masking fluid to add in white pieces of grass without having to paint those on, and added in a lot of texture, leaves. This print came out a little bit muted, but it's still one of my personal favourites. Should have probably mentioned as well that these paintings are all done with watercolour. Some of them use masking fluid, and I always go over any areas that I feel like need a little extra with Derwent drawing pencils. But this is another one where I was experimenting with a lot of different texture, using the masking fluid to blank out some spaces and just working on that style, which then leads on to this one, which is very much the same, but maybe pushed a little bit too far. So sort of learning that boundary of those limits and those textures, but just mixing it up, learning as I go. Yeah, I really like those larger ones. I'm going to move on now to some of the smaller ones, and you will have seen most of these, I think, but there is a few of these very small ones that are new. I think this is one of the ones I did right at the end. This one, I think I'm using Jelly Gouache by the brand Himi. It's rough, I like it, it just has something about it. The rest of the paintings that I'm laying around were part of a video where I did 6 paintings in 1 hour. And so I taped 6 pieces of this watercolor paper down onto my desk and I painted them all simultaneously. They're mostly all there, but I think there's one missing, which has been turned into a print, so it's okay that it's maybe lost. But that is those ones. Moving on to this concertina, which is a really rough landscape. This was on a day where I just needed something different, really loose, and I do sometimes look at that one just to remind me. These are also from that same time where I needed something loose and low energy, and I used the masking fluid just to write the words freedom and creativity in there, and I really like them. They make me feel happy when I see them, the amount of texture and colour, and seeing these little leafy patterns just brings me little joy. Not something that I would necessarily get made into anything, just something for me. Okay, so we're getting into gouache territory now. So it's probably been about a year since I used gouache, and I used the jelly gouache because I like to have the paints all available to me at the same time. I'm not into like tubey paint at the moment. I think because I like to be able to just mix as I go, and that extra step of putting paint down and mixing it is something that I feel is a little bit of a barrier. I don't do that. So I do have the big jelly gouache palette, and these are 3 paintings that I did with that. The one in my sketchbook was the last one that I did, and it was interesting to learn gouache again. This is another loose one. The layering process with gouache is so different to what I'm used to with watercolor. With watercolor, I'm used to building it up, and you can see on this one sort of building up that blue and those textures. Whereas with gouache, you have to maybe go in with the darker pieces first and then work your way back up. So a lot of this work I have shown in previous videos, so I'm not going to explain every piece, but I think it's quite interesting to see it. And yeah, I think I'm still a little bit shocked at how much there is because you sort of forget and you just keep making it. So then when you put it all together, it's a very nice exercise that shows you, yeah, I have been putting in the work. I do see results, and I've made some work that I may want to make into something, or I may want to revisit, and that's such a great feeling. I think art is amazing in some ways as well, in that it captures memories. So a lot of these things I can remember, maybe conversations I was having on the phone while I was painting them, or the kind of day that I was having. And I think that that's really important because it kind of like it gets captured within that piece, and seeing some of them brings back those memories, nice ones. But memories of maybe like talking on the phone with my nana, or I've just come back from like a meeting which was lovely, or a nice walk and I'm feeling really inspired and motivated to paint. Things like that. Sometimes I can even remember, you know, like what I was watching on the TV, which I think is so funny. Okay, so I've moved on now to the Concertina sketchbooks, and I really love these. I'm really proud that it's something different, it's something small, and it broke down the art process into like these panels, which I felt was a little bit easier. I'm definitely going to make a lot more of these, and I love that they're like freestanding as well. So I can imagine, you know, I could have out some artwork on display and maybe have those sitting. This is another one. This is probably the first one that I did, and it's a bunch of different landscapes that I had done and been inspired to create. I love how they sort of blend together on that side and then maybe a little bit different on this one. But I really like adding in these black lines that break up these paintings, and you can see on this side not much effort has gone in, and that is fine. But when I went on a spontaneous walk, which is also another video, when I discovered this little hidden gem called Waverdale Park, I came home, and after having done those Concertina sketchbooks, I made another one. And this one is a smaller one, but it has more panels. And I decided I was going to paint my walk when I came home. And so that's what I did. So I've painted this little red bug, the path, and some of the things that I could see. This little bench, I did sit on that in that video and talked about how I was feeling, the sort of things I could see. There were these amazing trees and like bees and bugs everywhere. It was so nice. I would really recommend that you go and watch that video because so many clips of nature, and I sort of talk through how I feel. I felt so happy on that day. But yeah, I will link it in the description. We're moving on to my sketchbook now, and these stickers are my original artworks that are available in my Etsy shop very soon. We're gonna have a look through and see what I've been up to in the month of June. There's a good mix in here. You can really see the development as it goes through. So this is a watercolor painting. Again, this is like my usual style, nice and light, nice and loose, adding the pencil over the top. This is not in sequence, this is just using gouache in my sketchbook, but that actually came after most of these. This one is from Jesmond Dean, that's the Old Mill, a little sketch before I painted it again later on. Some little thumbnail ideas for the Concertina sketchbook, painting in my garden, some gouache painting. That was the first gouache that I did. This one I've already shown, which was in the series of this painting the same thing 3 times. Did some lovely flowers, and I really enjoyed the gouache, but I did like to go back and forwards between the watercolour and the gouache. I think I like the deepness of it, but the watercolour is just my comfort zone. It's where I feel like I'm completely in control. I know what I'm doing, I know how it works, I know how to handle it, and I think I'll continue to go back and forward until I maybe feel confident with both, or maybe I'll use both in future artworks. I'm not really sure at the moment, but I know that I feel the most comfortable and confident with watercolour, and I'll continue when I'm out and about to use that. But the gouache still feels unfamiliar and unknown right now. So I'm just laying all of these pieces back out, and this is just to show you the sheer amount of work that I've made in June. I'm really proud of myself. I think that I didn't have any intentions going into June, just that I wanted to keep developing my skills. But I think that it's important to maybe have a goal or an intention to go forward with. And I think that my intention for the month of July is to keep trying those things and to keep following my passion. I think where I've limited myself before has been when I haven't felt like work has been consistent within like the same style or painting the same things. And I think that July, I would love for it to be more about just picking up any art material that I feel like in that moment and not forcing anything upon myself. Whether I want to move away from watercolour for a bit and come back later, that would be fine. But my intention, I think, is going to be that. Just to follow my passions a little bit more and not be afraid that maybe it's too different to the work I've been making already. Because I'm still in this transition of figuring out what my style is and what it is gonna be. And it will change, but I think that that's really important. I've loved actually looking through all of this work again and seeing some of the prints that I have and hearing what people have to say about it when it's out in the big world at markets. And so I will continue to do that, and I hope you really enjoyed this video, and I hope that it's inspired you to have a look, or maybe just look at some of the work you've done so far in June or July, whenever this is, just to have a look and really show yourself, no, you have been putting in the work, you've been making stuff. But that's also to say you don't have to have this amount of work. You have to fit around what you are capable of, what fits into your timetable and your schedule. And I hope you are happy with the progress you're making right now. But I'll see you in the next one, okay? Bye!